All right, Broncos country, everybody take a seat at the table. It's time to have the Sean Payton conversation, and I want to warn you now, this is not going to be a pretty nor a fun conversation to have. The Denver Broncos traded a first-round pick and a second-round pick to the New Orleans Saints to get Sean Payton. They essentially traded away Bradley Chubb to get Sean Payton. They really hamstrung their organization by not having that first-round pick. And what has Sean Payton shown for it at this point? Yes, last year the Broncos were almost in the playoffs after starting off 1-5. Yes, they did have a stretch there last year where they were playing some really good football. Well, how did that season end? The loss to the New England Patriots last year was an inexcusable loss. Led to the benching of Russell Wilson. You start Jarrett Stidham those final 2 games of the year. Sean claims it's to give a spark to the offense, but we all know it was just so that way they could bench Russell Wilson without having to answer questions to the league in order to essentially not have to pay those injury guarantees on Russell Wilson's contract. We all know that. Well, we fast forward to now. Sean Payton has his quarterback, or supposedly he does, in Bo Nix. Traded up in the first round to get him. Has spoken highly of him so far, and we've seen flashes of brilliance from Bo Nix in the preseason, in training camp, and even various flashes here and there in the regular season games that we've seen so far. But it's nowhere near enough, and I think a lot of the blame here falls on Sean Payton for not putting his rookie quarterback in position to be successful. First of all, on the opening 20 snaps of the game for the Denver Broncos, they only ran the rock 7 times. That's inexcusable. That needs to at least be like a 12-8 ratio run to pass, or maybe 10-10. It cannot be in favor of the other way around. The Broncos have got to establish the run game early, and they did not do that. Another thing that the Broncos have failed to do in these 2 games is utilize Bo Nix's legs. We did see Bo actually run a couple of QB draws in this game. One of them he actually checked into when he saw a favorable look from the defense. That was really good. The other one was when they were trying to get points there on their final offensive possession, and I've got more to say about that offensive possession as well. I think that was a disaster for the Denver Broncos. But Bo Nix did do some nice stuff with his legs, but it wasn't enough. You didn't see any read options called in this game, even though the Broncos did call a couple read options for Bo in the preseason. You didn't see any rollouts. You didn't see anything to get Bo on the perimeter and use his legs. And also, you don't see Bo really hitting those rushing lanes whenever the protection breaks down. He's really not doing a good job of seeing an open lane and taking it for a 5-yard gain that's there on 3rd down and 4. That's something that's a little bit frustrating to me with Bo Nix that has to be cleaned up. And again, I'm holding that on coaching. I think that is a coaching issue, not a Bo Nix issue. Again, we saw way too many passes today that were either behind the line of scrimmage or within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. It wasn't really until the 3rd quarter when the Broncos finally started slinging the rock downfield a little bit more. It started off on that Wildcat razzle-dazzle play where Javonte Williams took the snap. I believe he flipped it to somebody. It ended up back in the hands of Bo Nix, who went deep downfield on a post route to Josh Reynolds. That was good stuff, and that opened things up a little bit in the passing game. Unfortunately, 2 plays later, Bo Nix throws a really ugly interception that's a classic rookie mistake. Didn't see the defender hanging in the back of the end zone. Cortland Sutton was well covered. It literally happened right in front of where I was sitting, and you could tell right when he threw that ball, and he threw it off of his back foot to boot, that it was going to be bad news. That is on Bo Nix. That was really the only bad play that Bo had today. Well, I guess he did also sail an outbreaking route. That was one other one that he missed. Aside from that, I thought Bo Nix did the best that he could, essentially making chicken salad out of chicken shit. That's what it was, because this game plan was not catering to Bo Nix's strengths. Additionally, it's the same issues from last week where the wide receiver play was god-awful. Guys were not getting separation. The yards after the catch was a little bit better in this game. I will definitely say that. But the offensive line play, complete and total dog crap. Mike McGlinchey, I mean, I'm grading McGlinchey on a bit of a curve here because he was going against TJ Watt, in my opinion, the best edge rusher in the game. And I thought, yes, McGlinchey did give up a couple of pressures, but for the most part in the game, he held his own against TJ Watt. But the same could not be said for Garrett Bowles going up against the Steelers' backup edge rushers. Well, Alex Highsmith's not really a backup, but it wasn't even Highsmith that was giving him issues. It was freaking Nick Herbig. That is a problem when a backup edge rusher is giving you fits like that. Bowles got beat to the inside, to the outside, had to get a couple of holds because he didn't want to get Bo Nix's head chopped off. There was one in particular where he was literally holding on to the rusher who had beat him to the inside for a good 4 or 5 seconds. Bo was just standing back there like, I know this is going to be a holding call, but I might as well try to make something happen with this play. And sure enough, it was a holding call. Bad offensive line play was not a common theme for the Denver Broncos last year. A lot of the sacks that Russell Wilson took were on Russell Wilson. A lot of these sacks that Bo Nix is taking are on the offensive line losing up front. The Broncos lost the war of attrition in this game. One final thing I want to say about this Sean Payton offense is that, man, it's really starting to get archaic when you take a look at where the rest of the league is at in terms of the usage of motion pre-snap as well as at the snap, the utilization of different personnel groupings, and also, for sake, please simplify the terminology and not make Bo Nix have to deliver a Gettysburg Address every time he calls a play. There was an instance where the Broncos had to burn a timeout in order to avoid a delay of game penalty, where Sean Payton called in the play to Bo Nix's helmet, probably told him wristband 42, because Bo wasn't wearing a band on his wrist, he was actually wearing it down here on his waist. So probably told him wristband 42. But it was a long-winded play call that Bo had some trouble spitting out in the huddle. I've said before that was one thing Bo hasn't really struggled with before, is spitting out plays in the huddle. This time he did. You could tell he kind of stumbled. The guys were looking at him like, what? And then he had to look back down at his band. He finally gets it right, but by the time the Broncos break the huddle, they're at 10 seconds left, and you're not going to get everything that you need to get done pre-snap accomplished in 10 seconds. You're not going to do any motions or shifts. You're not going to do any dummy cadence, any identification of what's going on defense. So the Broncos had to burn a timeout in order to avoid a delay of game penalty. That's on Sean Payton for not being able to strip down these long-winded play calls into something that is 3 or 4 words that the entire team understands. The good offensive coordinators in the NFL have had the ability to do that. They really strip down all the complicated, nonsensical verbiage. Yes, I understand that sometimes play calls by nature are going to be a little bit long. You've got to deliver, obviously, the formation, any motions or shift, the protections, and then the actual route concepts or run blocking concept. You've got to deliver all of that. But good offensive coordinators have the ability to really strip all of the unnecessary verbiage down and get it to about 3 or 4 words as opposed to 10, 12, even 20 words for some of these Sean Payton play calls. I believe that if these offensive struggles for the Denver Broncos continue, the Broncos should really consider maybe making a change at offensive play caller. Andy Reid has done this before, where his offense has been in a rut and he's turned over play calling duties to his offensive coordinator. In this instance, I don't think the Broncos should turn it over to offensive coordinator Joe Lombardi. I think they should turn it over to Davis Webb, the quarterback's coach. Webb is an offensive coordinator in the making in the NFL, and also possibly even a head coach in the making. Let's see what Davis can do. Let's see how he can modernize this offense with some pre-snap motion at the snap, quarterback run game, more modernization in the running back run game, stuff like that. I really want to see what Davis Webb can do. And if this offense continues to struggle as we get to week 6, 7, 8, Sean Payton should really consider turning the play calling duties over to Davis Webb, and that way Sean can just sort of become the CEO who oversees everything. Now, will Sean Payton, who's an absolute control freak, be willing to give up offensive play calling duties? I don't know, but good coaches in the NFL, such as Andy Reid, are willing to try almost anything when stuff isn't working on one side of the ball. That's what's happening here, is that things are just not working on that side of the ball, and the Broncos need to try something different. So if these offensive issues continue, then I really think that the Broncos need to consider putting in Davis Webb. And another thing with Sean Payton is some of the game management stuff. I thought that the Broncos completely botched the end of the end of the game. I thought that they had a chance to potentially score before the 2-minute warning and then get the ball back. That timeout you had to burn early in the second half because of those play calling wristband issues really came back to bite you, because you didn't have all 3 timeouts to where if the Steelers got the ball back, you could stop the clock and then get the ball back with enough time to score. The Broncos botched it in that regard first. Then they didn't score ahead of the 2-minute warning, which forced them to kick a field goal on 4th down and 5. Then Pittsburgh got the ball back, and because the Broncos didn't have timeouts, they ended up being able to run the clock down to like 18 seconds. They punted it back to Denver, and instead of having your return man fair catch it, Sean Payton had Marvin Mims return the ball, and or I believe it was somebody else because Marvin Mims got nicked up, but Sean Payton had the return man return the ball, and it ended up losing 10 seconds, and you only had like 9 seconds to try to get a couple plays for a last-second field or for a last-second touchdown. It just was bad game management. You also could have kicked an onside kick there. So, winding this down, Broncos country, I really feel like Sean Payton carries a good load of the blame here, and the coaching staff as a whole, for this loss. I thought defensively, they actually played really well in that second half. They shut things down for Pittsburgh in the second half, but offensively, there are some big-time problems, and they're going to have to get fixed before we can fairly evaluate Bo Nix's rookie season. All right, Broncos country, I am curious. How long do you think we should go letting this continue before we ought to consider possibly letting Davis Webb take over the play calling duties? Drop those comments down below, guys. I would love to hear your thoughts, as always. Be sure to leave a like on this video, as well as subscribe and ring the bell so these videos appear in your notification feed. I would really appreciate it, guys. Those are both free and easy ways to show your support, helps tell YouTube's algorithm to push us out, and helps us get seen by more and more members of Broncos country just like you and me. And until next time, guys, I'm your host, Gage Madrid, saying peace out.